Hello, Mr. Detective listeners. Our brilliant Detective Marcus Reid wishes you good viewing. The call came at 3:47 p.m. on a Tuesday. Detective Marcus Reid was halfway through his third cup of coffee. Black, no sugar. The way sanity tasted when you'd spent 5 years listening to other people's problems before realizing you were better at solving crimes than marriages. The precinct was its usual symphony of chaos. Phones ringing, suspects complaining, officers shuffling papers like they were playing cards with the universe. Marcus had his feet up on his desk, reading a psychological profile of a serial arsonist from the 90s, when his phone buzzed. "Reid," he answered, not bothering to hide the boredom in his voice. "We've got a body. Downtown. The Ashford Hotel. Room 47. It was Captain Chen." And her voice had that edge it only got when something was seriously wrong. Marcus swung his feet down. Natural causes? If natural causes involve being stabbed 17 times and arranged like a museum exhibit, then sure. There was a pause. "Get down here, now." He grabbed his jacket, the worn leather one that had seen better days but fit like a second skin, and headed out. The Ashford Hotel, fancy place. The kind where people paid more for a night than most made in a week. Which meant whoever did this either had money or really wanted to make a statement. Marcus had learned long ago that murders in expensive hotels were never simple. Rich people had complicated lives, and complicated lives made for interesting deaths. The drive took 20 minutes through traffic that moved like molasses. Marcus used the time to run through possibilities. 17 stab wounds suggested rage, passion, something personal. But arranged like a museum exhibit? That was different. That was control, planning. Someone who wanted the body found exactly as they left it. These two things didn't usually go together. And when they did, you were dealing with someone special. Not good special. The kind of special that kept you up at night. The Ashford loomed ahead, all glass and steel, and the kind of architecture that screamed, "We're better than you." Police tape cordoned off the entrance. News vans were already circling like vultures. Marcus flashed his badge and pushed through, ignoring the questions shouted at his back. Inside, the lobby was all marble and crystal chandeliers, the air thick with the scent of expensive perfume and fear. Captain Chen met him at the elevators. She was in her late 40s, sharp as a razor, with eyes that missed nothing. "4th floor," she said. "Room 47. Victim's name is Jonathan Ashford." "Yes, that Ashford. Owner's son." Marcus raised an eyebrow. "Well, that explains the media circus." "It gets better. He was supposed to get married next week. Fiancé found the body 2 hours ago. She's in shock, can barely speak." They rode up in silence. Marcus watched the numbers climb. 4th floor. The doors opened to a hallway crawling with forensics. Officers photographed everything, dusted for prints, bagged evidence. The door to room 47 stood open, and even from here, Marcus could smell it, the copper tang of blood, sharp and unmistakable. He stepped inside, and the world narrowed to the scene before him. Jonathan Ashford lay on the bed, arms spread wide, legs together. 17 stab wounds, just like Chen said, forming a pattern across his chest. But it was the arrangement that caught Marcus's attention. The body wasn't just left, it was posed, carefully, deliberately, like someone had taken their time making sure every detail was perfect. The bedsheets were white, now stained crimson in spreading pools. Candles surrounded the bed, unlit. A single red rose lay on the nightstand. "Thoughts?" Chen asked from the doorway. Marcus circled the bed slowly, his mind already cataloging details. The wounds were precise, almost surgical. No defensive wounds on the hands or arms, which meant either Jonathan knew his killer and never saw it coming, or he was restrained. Marcus checked the wrists. No marks, so trust then. Someone he knew. This wasn't random, Marcus said. Whoever did this knew Jonathan. Knew him well enough to get him alone in a hotel room, relaxed enough not to fight back. The fiancé? Maybe, but... Marcus crouched beside the bed, examining the blood spatter. These wounds are deep. Whoever did this had strength. And look at the pattern. He traced the air above the body. They form a shape. Almost like a heart. Chen stepped closer. A heart? You're saying the killer arranged 17 stab wounds into the shape of a heart? I'm saying someone went to a lot of trouble to make this look a certain way. And people who do that have a reason. Marcus stood. Where's the fiancé? Room 52, same floor. Officers with her. Marcus headed for the door, then paused. Something was off. He turned back, scanning the room again. Everything was too clean, too perfect, except for one thing. On the desk near the window sat a laptop, closed but with a sticky note attached to the screen. Marcus walked over, pulled on a glove, and peeled the note off. For Detective Reid. You'll understand. His blood went cold. Captain, he called, holding up the note. We've got a problem. Chen read it, her face paling. How does the killer know your name? Good question. Marcus stared at the note, his mind racing. In his years as a detective, he'd made enemies. Criminals he'd put away, cases he'd solved, lives he'd ruined in the pursuit of justice. But this was different. This was personal. Someone had killed Jonathan Ashford and left a message specifically for him, the laptop. Marcus opened it. The screen flickered to life, no password required. A video file sat on the desktop, labeled simply, "Play me." He glanced at Chen. She nodded. He double-clicked. The video showed the hotel room, filmed from the corner near the ceiling. Timestamp read 2:13 p.m., roughly 90 minutes before the body was discovered. Jonathan Ashford entered, talking on his phone, laughing about something. He ended the call, sat on the bed. Then the door opened again, and someone walked in. The camera angle was wrong. Marcus couldn't see their face. They wore all black, including gloves. Jonathan stood, smiled, said something Marcus couldn't hear. The figure moved fast, too fast. One moment they were talking, the next, the knife was out, and Jonathan was falling backward onto the bed. What happened next took 6 minutes. 6 minutes of methodical, deliberate violence. The killer worked with precision, each stab wound placed carefully, measured. They never rushed, never hesitated. When they finished, they arranged the body, lit and then extinguished the candles, placed the rose, and turned to face the camera directly. They waved. Then the video cut to black, replaced by text. Tick-tock, detective. 3 more days. 3 more bodies. Can you read the pattern before the finale? The screen went dark. Marcus felt Chen's presence beside him. 3 more bodies, she whispered. We're dealing with a serial killer. Not just any serial killer. Marcus replayed the final seconds, freezing on the moment the killer faced the camera. They'd worn a mask, a simple white face with a painted smile. But something about the way they moved, the tilt of their head, triggered a memory. He'd seen this before. Not this exact case, but something similar, years ago when he was still a therapist. I need to make a call, Marcus said, already pulling out his phone. To who? Someone I hoped I'd never have to talk to again. He dialed a number he'd memorized but never used, listening to it ring once, twice, 3 times. A voice answered, smooth and cold. Hello, Marcus. I've been waiting for you to call. Marcus's grip tightened on the phone. Dr. Valentine, you got my gift, I see. Did you like the presentation? I spent weeks planning it. Every detail matters, Marcus. You taught me that. Back when you were trying to fix my condition. A soft laugh. You never could understand, could you? Some people aren't broken. They're just different. Where are you, Valentine? Oh, I'm close. Closer than you think. And I'm not finished. You see, Jonathan was just the beginning. A warm-up, if you will. The real show starts tomorrow. 3 more acts, 3 more masterpieces. And you, my dear former doctor, get a front row seat. The line went dead. Marcus stood frozen, phone still pressed to his ear. Dr. Adrian Valentine. He should have known. 5 years ago, Valentine had been his patient. Brilliant, charming, and completely lacking in empathy. A textbook psychopath who'd sought therapy, not to change, but to better understand how to manipulate others. Marcus had recognized the signs, referred him to specialized care, thought he'd done the right thing. He'd been wrong. Marcus? Chen's voice pulled him back. Who was that? Our killer, Dr. Adrian Valentine, former patient of mine from when I practiced therapy. He's a psychopath, high-functioning, extremely intelligent. And apparently he's decided I'm responsible for whatever twisted game he's playing. Can we trace the call? He's too smart for that. But he said something important. 3 more acts starting tomorrow. Which means we have less than 24 hours to figure out his next move. Chen pulled out her radio. I'll get every available officer on this. We'll find him. Marcus shook his head. You won't, not with manpower. Valentine spent 5 years planning this. He'll have contingencies for everything. The only way to stop him is to understand him. To think like him. He turned back to the laptop. And he's left us breadcrumbs. We just need to follow them. The rest of the afternoon blurred into activity. Marcus interviewed the fiancé. a devastated young woman named Claire who could barely form sentences between sobs. She had an alibi, confirmed by security footage showing her at a spa across town when Jonathan died. Dead end there. He talked to hotel staff, reviewed security footage, built a timeline. Nothing useful. Valentine had been thorough, leaving no physical evidence except what he wanted them to find. By evening, Marcus was back at the precinct, surrounded by case files and coffee cups, studying everything he could remember about Adrian Valentine. The man was 38, born into wealth, educated at the finest schools. On paper, he was perfect, successful psychiatrist, published author, philanthropist. But Marcus had seen beneath the mask. Valentine's eyes had been empty, devoid of real human connection. He'd come to therapy as an experiment, treating Marcus like a lab rat to study normal human behavior, and now he was killing people to prove a point. Marcus's phone buzzed. "Unknown number," he answered. "Having fun yet?" Valentine's voice, amused. "Why Jonathan Ashford?" "You're asking the wrong question, Marcus. The question isn't why Jonathan. It's why arrange him like that? Why 17 wounds? Why a heart?" A pause. "You were always good at reading people. Use that gift. Read me." The line went dead again. Marcus stared at the crime scene photos spread across his desk. 17 wounds. A heart shape. The number nagged at him. 17. What was significant about 17? He pulled up Valentine's file from his old practice. Birthday, March 17th. 17th day of the 3rd month. The heart. Valentine had once told Marcus during a session that he envied people who could feel love, who could form genuine attachments. He'd called it the supreme human experience he could never have, and Jonathan was engaged, about to marry. About to experience that supreme connection. "He's targeting love," Marcus muttered. "He's killing people who have what he can't." Chen appeared beside his desk. "Come again?" Marcus stood, energy surging through him. Valentine's first victim was engaged, about to get married. His message about 3 more bodies. He's going to target others in romantic relationships. People experiencing love, connection, things he's incapable of feeling. It's not random. It's personal revenge against an emotion he can't access. "So we warn every engaged couple in the city?" "No, we figure out his pattern." He said 3 more acts. 4 victims total, including Jonathan. That's a complete set. A story with beginning, middle, and end. We need to figure out what that story is before he writes the finale. Marcus grabbed his jacket. "I need to go somewhere." "Where?" "Valentine's old office. He maintained a private practice before everything. There might be something there. Records, patterns, anything that tells us who his next targets are." The night was cold, the kind that seeped into your bones and reminded you that winter wasn't far off. Marcus drove through empty streets, his mind working through possibilities. Valentine was methodical, precise. He wouldn't choose victims randomly. There would be a system, a logic only he understood, and somewhere in his past, in the life he'd led before becoming a killer, were the clues Marcus needed. The building that housed Valentine's old practice stood dark and empty, scheduled for demolition next month. Marcus picked the lock, a skill he'd learned from a case years back, and slipped inside. His flashlight cut through the darkness, illuminating dusty furniture and abandoned files. Valentine's office was on the 3rd floor, untouched since he'd closed his practice 3 years ago. Marcus searched methodically, going through desk drawers, filing cabinets, bookshelves. Most of it was useless. Old appointment books, billing statements, professional journals. But then, hidden in a locked drawer he had to pry open, Marcus found it, a journal. Leather-bound, filled with handwritten notes in Valentine's precise script. Marcus flipped through pages, his heart sinking with each entry. Names, dates, detailed observations about patients, their relationships, their vulnerabilities. And on the last page, a list of 4 names. Jonathan Ashford, Act 1, Sarah Martinez, Act 2, David Chen, Act 3, Marcus Reid. Finale. Marcus's hands trembled. The list included him. He was the finale, the grand conclusion to whatever story Valentine was telling. But first, 2 more people would die. Sarah Martinez and David Chen. He grabbed his phone, dialing the precinct. "Chen, I need you to run background on 2 names. Sarah Martinez and David Chen. Look for any connection to Valentine. Any romantic relationships, anything that makes them targets. On it." "Marcus, are you okay? You sound..." "Just find them, fast. We're running out of time." He pocketed the journal and headed back to his car. As he drove, his mind raced. Valentine had included Marcus in his list, which meant this was about more than just killing people who could feel love. This was about revenge, about proving something to the man who'd once tried to help him, who'd recognized his true nature and rejected him. This was personal, and that made it even more dangerous. By midnight, Marcus had the profiles. Sarah Martinez, 29, wedding photographer who'd just gotten engaged 3 weeks ago to her girlfriend. David Chen, 52, Captain Chen's younger brother, recently remarried after a painful divorce. Both fit Valentine's pattern perfectly. People celebrating new love, fresh starts, the kind of emotional connections Valentine could observe but never truly experience. Marcus sat in the precinct conference room. Photos and files spread across the table like pieces of a puzzle he couldn't quite solve. Captain Chen paced behind him, phone pressed to her ear as she coordinated protection details for both potential victims. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead, harsh and unforgiving at this hour when most sane people were home sleeping. "David's secure," Chen said, ending her call. 2 officers outside his house, 2 inside. "He's scared but cooperative." "And Sarah Martinez?" Chen's face tightened. "She's not home. Roommate says she's on a job. Engagement shoot at Riverside Park. I've got units heading there now." Marcus was already moving, grabbing his jacket. "Which part of the park?" "The old bridge near—" "I know it." Marcus ran for the stairs, Chen right behind him. Riverside Park sprawled across 200 acres, but the old bridge was Valentine style. Romantic, photogenic, isolated after dark. Perfect for what he had planned. They took Chen's car, sirens blaring as they cut through empty streets. Marcus's mind raced through scenarios, each worse than the last. Valentine had said 3 more acts starting tomorrow, but what if he'd lied? What if the timeline was a misdirection, meant to keep them off balance while he moved faster than expected? The park entrance loomed ahead, gates closed for the night. Chen didn't slow down, crashing through the chain-link barrier. The car bounced over grass and gravel paths, headlights cutting through darkness thick as tar. Marcus scanned the shadows, looking for any sign of movement. Any hint they weren't too late. The old bridge appeared, a stone arch over a narrow creek, illuminated by the full moon hanging low and fat in the sky. A car sat parked nearby, trunk open, camera equipment visible inside. But no people, no sounds except the whisper of wind through trees and the distant wail of approaching sirens. Marcus was out before Chen fully stopped, weapon drawn, every sense on high alert. "Sarah Martinez," he called. "Police!" "If you can hear me, make a sound." Nothing. Then, from beneath the bridge, a whimper. Soft, terrified, barely human. Marcus moved fast, sliding down the embankment to the creek bed below. The smell hit him first, gasoline, sharp and chemical. Then he saw her. Sarah Martinez, bound to one of the bridge supports with rope, mouth gagged, eyes wide with terror. And surrounding her, in a perfect circle, were dozens of candles, lit, flames dancing in the night air, but it was what lay at her feet that made Marcus's blood freeze. A trail of gasoline, leading from the candles to a larger container positioned just out of Sarah's reach. One strong wind, one candle tipping over, and she'd go up like a torch. "Don't move," Marcus said, holstering his weapon and approaching slowly. "You're going to be okay. I'm Detective Reid. I'm here to help." Sarah's eyes followed him, desperate, pleading. Marcus knelt beside her, carefully avoiding the gasoline, and began working on the ropes. They were tied expertly, the kind of knots that took time and knowledge. Valentine had been here. Recently. The ropes were still warm from body heat. Behind him, Chen appeared with bolt cutters. Together they freed Sarah, carried her up the embankment away from the candles and gasoline. Backup arrived moments later, uniforms, fire department, forensics. Sarah collapsed against a police car, sobbing, while EMTs checked her for injuries. Marcus stood apart, watching the scene, his mind elsewhere. This wasn't right. Valentine had left Sarah alive. Left her in a situation where rescue was possible, even likely given the timeline. This wasn't Act 2. This was a diversion. His phone rang. "Unknown number. You're too predictable, Marcus." Valentine's voice, amused as always. "I tell you Sarah Martinez is next, and you run to save her like a good little hero. Meanwhile, Act 2 is already complete. Check your messages." The line died. Marcus's phone buzzed with an incoming text. A photo. David Chen, Captain Chen's brother, sitting in what looked like his living room. And standing behind him, visible in a mirror's reflection, was a figure in black wearing that same white mask with its painted smile. "No," Marcus whispered. He spun to find Captain Chen. "Your brother. Call him now." Chen's face went pale. She dialed, listening to it ring once, twice, 5 times. No answer. She tried the officers stationed at his house. No response. They drove like demons through the night, but Marcus already knew what they'd find. Valentine had played them perfectly, using Sarah as bait while he moved on his real target. By the time they reached David Chen's house in the suburbs, the scene was chaos. Patrol cars everywhere, lights flashing, officers milling about with expressions that said it all. Captain Chen ran inside. Marcus followed, dreading what came next. The living room looked normal at first glance. Television on, showing some late-night program. Coffee table with magazines. Family photos on the walls. But the officers who'd been stationed inside lay unconscious on the floor, drugged but alive. And in the center of the room, positioned in a leather recliner like a king on a throne, sat David Chen. Dead. No visible wounds this time. His eyes were closed, hands folded peacefully in his lap, a slight smile on his face. He looked almost serene, like he'd fallen asleep watching TV. But Marcus could see the subtle discoloration around his lips, the way his chest didn't rise and fall. Poison. Captain Chen stood frozen in the doorway, her face a mask of professional control, barely hiding the devastation underneath. Marcus wanted to say something, offer comfort, but what words existed for this? He'd failed. They'd all failed. Valentine had outmaneuvered them at every turn. The forensics team worked around them, careful and methodical. They found the poison in David's coffee cup, something fast-acting, probably administered while the guards were being drugged. Time of death estimated at 11:30 p.m., right when Marcus had been racing to save Sarah Martinez at the park. On the coffee table, propped against a lamp, was another note. Marcus read it, his jaw tightening with each word. Act 2, the widower's second chance. David Chen thought he could start over, forget his failures, build something new. But some people don't deserve second acts. They're too broken, too flawed, too human. I gave him peace. You're welcome. Act 3 begins in 18 hours. Can you save them, Marcus? Or will you fail again? V. Chen took the note from Marcus's hands, read it, and crumpled it slowly. He knew, she said, her voice hollow. Valentine knew David was my brother. He chose him specifically. To hurt you. To hurt me through you. Marcus felt the weight of guilt settling on his shoulders. This is about me. He's punishing everyone connected to me. Then we end it. Now. We find this bastard and we end it. They worked through the night. Crime scene processed. Statements taken. Every piece of evidence logged and analyzed. But Valentine had left nothing useful. No fingerprints, no DNA, no trace evidence that could lead them to his location. He was a ghost, moving through the city like smoke, untouchable. By dawn, Marcus was running on caffeine and rage. He'd returned to the precinct, to the conference room that had become his war room, and spread out everything they knew. 2 victims down, 1 to go before Valentine came for Marcus himself. 18 hours, Valentine had said, which meant the third act would play out tonight. But who was the target? Marcus pulled up Valentine's journal again, reading through entries for any clue he'd missed. The psychopath's handwriting was precise, almost beautiful, each letter perfectly formed. He'd documented his patients obsessively, their fears, their desires, their relationships. It was a hunter's guide to human weakness. One entry caught Marcus's eye. Dated 4 years ago, shortly before Valentine closed his practice. Met someone interesting today. Not a patient, a colleague. Dr. Emily Foster, psychiatrist specializing in trauma. She's everything I'm supposed to be but can't. Empathetic, caring, genuinely invested in her patient's well-being. We discussed a case over lunch, and I watched her tear up talking about a teenager who'd attempted suicide. Real tears. Real emotion. I felt nothing as always, but I envied her ability to feel so deeply. She's engaged to a surgeon. They're planning a June wedding. How quaint. Marcus grabbed his phone, dialing Chen. I need you to find Dr. Emily Foster. Psychiatrist would have been engaged 4 years ago to a surgeon. That's our third victim. On it. While he waited, Marcus paced, his mind dissecting Valentine's pattern. Jonathan Ashford, killed brutally, arranged like art, representing love Valentine could never have. David Chen, poisoned peacefully. representing second chances Valentine believed some people didn't deserve. What did Emily Foster represent? His phone buzzed. Chen's voice was tight. Found her. Dr. Emily Foster, 41, married to Dr. James Foster, orthopedic surgeon. They run a joint practice. She handles therapy for trauma patients. He does reconstructive surgery for accident victims. They work out of the Foster Medical Center downtown. Are they there now? According to their receptionist, they're both seeing patients today. Full schedule. Get units there. I'm on my way. The Foster Medical Center occupied the 10th floor of a glass tower in the financial district. Marcus arrived to find uniformed officers already in position, securing exits and checking everyone who came or went. Inside, the reception area was all soft lighting and calming colors, designed to put anxious patients at ease. A young woman behind the desk looked terrified as Marcus approached. Badge out. Dr. Emily Foster, where is she? She's in session. Room 3. But she can't be disturbed when... Marcus was already moving, ignoring her protests. Room 3's door was closed. He knocked once, hard, then pushed it open. The office was empty. Not just empty, abandoned. Mid-session by the look of things. A patient's coat draped over a chair. Coffee still steaming in a mug on the desk. But no doctor. No patient. Just silence and the faint smell of something chemical Marcus couldn't quite place. He checked the adjoining rooms. All empty. Returned to reception. Where's Dr. James Foster? Surgery suite, basement level. But he's in the middle of a procedure. Marcus ran for the stairs, Chen in 2 uniforms right behind him. The basement was cooler, sterile, all white walls and the smell of disinfectant. The surgery suite door was locked. Marcus pounded on it. Dr. Foster! Police, open up! No response. He looked at Chen. She nodded. One of the uniforms produced a key card. Security had provided access codes. The lock clicked. Marcus pushed through. The surgery suite was dark except for a single overhead light. And beneath it, strapped to an operating table, was Dr. Emily Foster. Unconscious but breathing, alive and standing beside her. Scalpel in hand, wearing surgical scrubs and that damned white mask, was Valentine. Welcome to Act 3, Marcus. His voice was muffled by the mask, but still recognizable. I was wondering how long you'd take. You're slowing down in your old age. Marcus drew his weapon, Chen and the officers doing the same. Step away from her now. Valentine laughed, the sound echoing in the empty room. So dramatic. You know I'm not going to hurt her. Not today. Emily represents something different than the others. She represents what could have been if I were different. If I were human. He set the scalpel down gently on a tray. I was going to kill her, you know. Planned the whole thing. But then I realized, why waste it? Why not let her live and know how close she came? Let her feel that fear every day for the rest of her life. Now that's a gift. You're under arrest. Marcus moved forward slowly, weapon trained on Valentine's chest. Hands up, on your knees. Oh, Marcus. Always so by the book. Valentine raised his hands, but made no move to kneel. Don't you want to know why? Why I did all this? Why I turned your life into a nightmare? I know why. Because you're sick. Because I rejected you as a patient, and you can't handle it. Partially true, but it's more than that. Valentine's head tilted. That gesture Marcus remembered from their sessions. You tried to fix me, Marcus. You looked at me and saw something broken that needed repair. But I'm not broken. I'm perfect. I'm evolution's next step. Humanity without the weakness of emotion, without the burden of conscience. And you couldn't accept that. You couldn't see the beauty in what I am. There's no beauty in murder, isn't there? Jonathan Ashford, arranged like a work of art. David Chen, given peace from his tortured second chance. Even Emily here, granted the gift of perpetual fear. I've created masterpieces, Marcus, and you're the only one who can truly appreciate them because you understand what I am. You always have. Marcus's finger tightened on the trigger. It would be so easy. One shot, end this nightmare, save however many future victims Valentine had planned. But that wasn't justice. That was revenge. And Marcus refused to become what Valentine wanted him to be. On your knees, he repeated. Last chance. Valentine finally complied, slowly lowering himself to the floor. This isn't over, you know. Act 4 is still coming. And when it does, you'll understand everything. You'll see what I've really been building toward. Officers moved in, cuffing Valentine roughly, reading him his rights. Marcus holstered his weapon and went to Emily Foster, checking her pulse, her breathing. Strong and steady. She'd been drugged, not harmed. She'd wake up with a headache and trauma that would last years, but she'd live. Chen coordinated the arrest while Marcus stood watching Valentine being led away. The psychopath turned at the door, making eye contact one last time. "See you soon, Marcus," for the finale. Then he was gone, and the room felt colder somehow, emptier. Marcus knew this wasn't victory. It was intermission. Valentine had let himself be caught. Everything up to this point had been set up, staging the pieces for whatever came next. And Marcus had just played exactly into his hands. Outside, dawn was breaking over the city, painting the sky in shades of orange and gold. Beautiful and terrible all at once. Marcus stood on the building's steps, watching patrol cars pull away with Valentine secured in the back of one. Captain Chen joined him, exhaustion written in every line of her face. "We got him," she said, but it didn't sound like triumph. It sounded like a question. "We got him," Marcus agreed. "But at what cost? 2 people dead, 1 traumatized, a city terrified." And somewhere in the back of Marcus's mind, a voice whispered that the worst was yet to come. Valentine had promised a finale, and men like him kept their promises. The question wasn't if Act 4 would happen. It was when. And who else would die before Marcus figured out how to stop it? He pulled out his phone, staring at Valentine's journal entries he'd photographed. 4 names, 4 acts, 3 complete. Only 1 remained. Marcus Reid. Finale. Whatever Valentine had planned, Marcus was the final piece. The grand conclusion. And walking into it felt like stepping toward an edge he couldn't see but knew was there, waiting to swallow him whole. Valentine sat in interrogation room B, hands cuffed to the table, still wearing that infuriating half-smile. Marcus watched him through the one-way glass, studying every micro-expression, every shift in posture. This was a man completely at ease, as if being arrested for multiple murders was merely an inconvenience in some larger plan. "He's been sitting there for 3 hours," Chen said beside him. "Hasn't said a word. Hasn't asked for a lawyer. Just waiting. For me." Marcus pulled on his jacket. "He wants me in there. Marcus, you're too close to this." "Let someone else. He won't talk to anyone else. You know that. This whole thing has been about getting me in that room." Marcus headed for the door. "Besides, maybe I can get him to slip up. Tell us where he's been staying, if he had accomplices, what the finale actually means." Chen grabbed his arm. "He killed my brother. If you give me 5 minutes alone with him, I know. But we do this right. By the book. It's the only way to make sure he never gets out." Marcus entered the interrogation room. Valentine's smile widened. "There he is. My favorite former therapist. Have a seat, Marcus. Let's chat like old times." Marcus sat across from him, placing a folder on the table. "You're looking at 3 counts of murder, 2 counts of attempted murder, kidnapping, breaking and entering, and about a dozen other charges. You'll never see daylight again. Is that supposed to scare me? Prison is just another environment to study. Think of all the fascinating minds I'll meet." Valentine leaned forward as much as his restraints allowed. "But you didn't come here to threaten me with consequences I don't care about. You came because you need answers. What's Act 4? When does it happen? Who else dies? You tell me. Where's the fun in that? Half the artistry is in the anticipation, Marcus. The not knowing. Right now, you're terrified that any moment, someone else will die, and it'll be your fault for not figuring out my pattern fast enough. That fear? That's my real masterpiece." Marcus opened the folder, spreading crime scene photos across the table. Jonathan Ashford, 26 years old, engaged, whole life ahead of him. "You stabbed him 17 times and arranged his body like a sick art project." Valentine barely glanced at the photos. "Beautiful work, if I say so myself. The symmetry alone took hours to perfect." David Chen, 52, just remarried, trying to rebuild his life after a painful divorce. "You poisoned him and left him smiling like he died happy. He did die happy. The poison I used creates euphoria before shutting down the central nervous system. I gave him a better death than he deserved." Marcus slapped another photo down. Dr. Emily Foster, 41, dedicated psychiatrist who helps trauma survivors. "You were going to kill her just to prove a point about your superiority. But I didn't. I showed mercy. Growth, Marcus. Character development." Valentine's smile never wavered. "You're trying to make me feel something. Guilt, remorse, empathy. But we both know I'm incapable of those emotions. That's what makes this so delicious. You keep trying to reach the humanity in me, and I keep proving it doesn't exist." Marcus leaned back, changing tactics. "Why me? Why make this personal?" "Because you saw me, Marcus. Really saw me. Not the mask I show the world, not the charming doctor everyone trusts. You looked into my eyes during our sessions and recognized the emptiness. And instead of being fascinated, instead of wanting to study that uniqueness, you rejected me. Referred me elsewhere like I was some broken toy you couldn't fix. You're not unique, Valentine. You're a textbook psychopath with delusions of grandeur. I've seen dozens like you. For the first time, something flickered behind Valentine's eyes. Anger, maybe, or wounded pride. Dozens like me? There's no one like me. I'm special, superior, evolution's next step. Marcus shook his head. That's what they all say. Every narcissistic psychopath who thinks they're smarter than everyone else. You're not special. You're predictable. Pathetic, even. Valentine's smile vanished. Careful, Marcus. You're making this personal. It's already personal. You made it personal when you killed innocent people just to get my attention. So here I am. You have my attention. Now what? What's this finale you keep threatening? When does it happen? Soon. Very soon. And when it does, you'll finally understand what I've been trying to teach you all along. Teach me what? Valentine leaned forward, his voice dropping to a whisper. That you're not so different from me. That underneath all your moral posturing and dedication to justice, you're just as empty, just as capable of violence, just as willing to cross lines when pushed hard enough. Act 4 will prove it. Marcus stood. I'm nothing like you. We'll see. Oh, and Marcus? Valentine's smile returned, colder than before. You might want to check on Captain Chen. I'd hate for something to happen to her while you're in here playing detective. Marcus's blood went cold. He bolted from the room, pulling out his phone, dialing Chen's number. It rang once, twice, went to voicemail. He tried again. Nothing. He burst into the observation room. Empty. The hallway outside. Empty. He grabbed a passing officer. Where's Captain Chen? Left about 10 minutes ago. Said she had to check something at home. Seemed upset. Marcus ran. Down corridors, through the bullpen, out to the parking lot. Chen's car was gone. He dialed her number again while climbing into his own vehicle. This time she answered. Marcus, I'm fine. Just needed some air. Went home to feed my cat and... Her voice cut off with a sharp intake of breath. Chen? What's wrong? Silence. Then a crash like the phone hitting the floor. Then nothing. Marcus drove like a madman through afternoon traffic, sirens blaring, taking corners too fast, running red lights. Chen's house was 20 minutes away. He made it in 12. Her car sat in the driveway, driver's door open. Front door to the house ajar. He drew his weapon, calling for backup as he approached. Inside was chaos. Furniture overturned. Lamp shattered on the floor. Signs of a struggle. And blood. Not much, but enough to paint a clear picture. Someone had been taken by force. On the coffee table sat a laptop, screen glowing. Marcus approached cautiously. A video file, already playing on loop. It showed Chen, bound to a chair in what looked like a warehouse. Alive but gagged, eyes wide with fury more than fear. And standing behind her, wearing that white mask, was a figure Marcus didn't recognize. Smaller than Valentine. Different build text appeared on screen. Act 4 begins now. Come alone to the address below, or Captain Chen dies in 1 hour. No police, no backup. Just you, Marcus. Let's see how far you'll go to save her. The address followed. Marcus recognized it. The old Riverside warehouse district, abandoned for years, scheduled for demolition. Perfect place for a finale. His phone rang. Valentine calling from the precinct. Surprise, Marcus. Did you really think I was working alone? I told you I'd been planning this for years. Years. That means contingencies, backups, partners who share my vision. Who is it? Who has Chen? Someone who understands me better than you ever did. Someone who sees the beauty in what I create. You'll meet them soon enough. Now hurry. Clock's ticking. And Marcus? This is where you prove whether you're the hero you pretend to be or the monster I know you can become. Don't disappoint me. The line died. Marcus stood in Chen's destroyed living room, gun in hand, mind racing. He should call for backup. Should coordinate a tactical response. Should do everything by the book. But Valentine's partner would be watching. Would kill Chen the moment they saw police. This had to be personal. Just Marcus walking into a trap he couldn't avoid. He checked his weapon. Full magazine. Extra ammunition in his jacket. Not much, but it would have to be enough. As he headed for his car, his phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. A photo. Chen, still alive, but with a gun pressed to her head. And beside her, partially visible in the frame, was something that made Marcus's stomach drop. A timer. Digital display reading 004733, counting down. Marcus drove toward the warehouse district, every instinct screaming that this was suicide. Valentine had orchestrated everything perfectly, maneuvering Marcus into exactly this position, alone, desperate, willing to do anything to save Chen. This was the finale. This was where Valentine would prove his thesis about human nature, about how easily good people could be pushed into darkness. The question was, would Marcus prove him right? The Riverside warehouse loomed against the evening sky, a skeleton of rusted metal and broken windows. Marcus parked 2 blocks away, approaching on foot, every sense on high alert. The address Valentine had given led to the largest building in the complex, 5 stories of industrial decay that groaned in the wind like something dying. The front entrance hung open. Too obvious. Marcus circled the perimeter, finding a side door with fresh scratches on the lock. Someone had picked it recently. He slipped inside, weapon drawn, letting his eyes adjust to the darkness. The warehouse was a maze of abandoned machinery and support columns. Graffiti covered the walls. Pigeons roosted in the rafters. And somewhere in this labyrinth, Chen was running out of time. Marcus checked his phone. 39 minutes left. A sound echoed from above. Footsteps. Marcus moved toward a rusted stairwell, climbing carefully, each step threatening to give way beneath his weight. 2nd floor, 3rd. The footsteps stayed ahead of him, leading him upward. This was by design. Everything Valentine did was choreographed. 5th floor. The top level opened into a vast empty space, moonlight streaming through broken skylights. And there, in the center, under a cone of silvery light, sat Captain Chen, still bound, still gagged. The timer strapped to her chest now read 0:36:12, but she wasn't alone. A figure stood behind her, wearing the white mask, holding a gun to Chen's head. As Marcus approached, the figure reached up with their free hand and slowly removed the mask. Marcus's world tilted. "Hello, Marcus," said Dr. Emily Foster, her voice calm and steady. "Surprised?" Marcus's gun wavered. "Emily, but you were the victim. We saved you from Valentine. You saved me from absolutely nothing." Emily smiled, and it was Valentine's smile. Cold, empty, predatory. "Adrian and I have been partners for 3 years. Lovers in our own way, though neither of us can really feel love. We understand each other, complete each other's work. He's the artist. I'm the technician, the surgery suite. You weren't drugged. You were acting? Very good. Adrian needed to be arrested. Needed the alibi of being in custody when Act 4 happened. And you needed to believe you'd won, that the threat was over. Your guard had to be down." Emily pressed the gun harder against Chen's temple. "Drop your weapon. Kick it away, now." Marcus hesitated. Chen's eyes met his, fierce even through her fear. She shook her head slightly. "Don't do it." But what choice did he have? He lowered his gun, placed it on the floor, kicked it toward Emily. It slid across the concrete, stopping at her feet. "Better. Now we can talk." Emily kept the gun trained on Chen, but addressed Marcus directly. "Adrian was right about you. You are fascinating. 5 years ago, when he told me about the therapist who saw through his mask, I didn't believe him. Psychopaths fool therapists all the time. But you recognized what he was immediately. That takes a special kind of insight. The kind that comes from seeing darkness and understanding it intimately. I'm nothing like Valentine. Nothing like you, aren't you? You left therapy because you couldn't stand listening to people's trivial problems anymore. Couldn't stand pretending to care about their marriages, their anxieties, their petty concerns. You became a detective because you wanted to hunt, to catch predators. Tell me that's not about the thrill, the chase, the violence." Marcus's jaw tightened. "I became a detective to help people. To get justice for victims. You became a detective because you were bored, because normal human interaction felt empty and meaningless, because solving crimes gave you the stimulation that regular life couldn't." Emily tilted her head, studying him. "Adrian and I made a bet. He said that if we pushed you hard enough, you'd cross the line. That you'd kill to save someone you cared about. That you'd prove you're just like us underneath all that moral posturing. I'll never be like you. We'll see. Here's how this works." Emily gestured to Chen. The timer reaches 0, and a signal triggers explosives packed around the chair. "Captain Chen becomes a memory unless what? Unless you kill me first. Right now, with your bare hands if necessary. Take the gun from my hand and shoot me. Strangle me. Beat me to death. I don't care how. But if you want to save your partner, you have to cross that line. You have to become a murderer. Marcus felt his heart pounding. This was the test, the finale. Valentine had constructed a scenario where the only way to save an innocent life was to take one, where being a hero required becoming a monster. There's got to be another way, Marcus said. There isn't. I made sure of it. The timer can't be stopped. The bomb can't be defused. Your only choice is me or her. And you have... Emily glanced at the timer. 32 minutes to decide. Chen made a muffled sound behind her gag, shaking her head violently. Don't do it. Don't become what they want you to be. But what was the alternative? Watch Chen die, live with that guilt forever. Marcus's mind raced through options, scenarios, desperate plans. He could rush Emily, try to tackle her, get the gun, but she'd shoot Chen first. He was sure of it. Could he talk her down? No, psychopaths didn't respond to emotional appeals. They didn't have empathy to manipulate. Clock's ticking, Marcus, Emily said. What's it going to be? Your morals or your partner's life? Marcus thought about Valentine in that interrogation room, smiling that knowing smile. This was what he wanted. Proof that even good men could be corrupted. That everyone had a breaking point where principles dissolved and survival instincts took over. But Valentine had made one mistake. He'd assumed Marcus would play by the rules of the game. That he'd accept the false binary choice. Kill Emily or let Chen die. But there was always a third option. There was always another way. Marcus looked at Emily, then at Chen, then back at Emily, and he smiled. Not Valentine's cold smile. His own smile, the one that said he'd figured out the trick. You're bluffing, Marcus said calmly. Emily's expression flickered. Excuse me? The bomb. It doesn't exist. There are no explosives. This whole thing is theater. Marcus took a step forward. Valentine said this was about proving I'm like him. But killing Chen doesn't prove that. It just makes me a witness to your crime. The real test is whether I'll kill you based on nothing but your word that Chen's in danger. You're willing to bet her life on that theory? I'm willing to bet her life on reading you. And I read you perfectly. You're a psychopath. You don't care about Chen dying. You care about the experiment, about the data, about proving Valentine's thesis. Chen's death is irrelevant to you unless it produces the result you want, me becoming a killer. Emily's gun hand steadied. Wrong answer, Detective. She fired, but not at Chen, at Marcus. The bullet caught him in the shoulder, spinning him sideways. Pain exploded through his arm. He dropped to one knee, hand pressed to the wound, blood seeping between his fingers. Emily walked toward him, gun raised. You're right about one thing. This is about the experiment, about data, but you're wrong about the variables. She stood over him. Adrian said if you figured out the bomb was fake, I should kill you anyway. Not because it proves his thesis, but because it proves you're worth killing, that you're actually intelligent enough to be a threat. She aimed at his head. Marcus closed his eyes, thinking of all the cases he'd solved, all the victims he'd helped, all the good he'd tried to do. If this was how it ended, at least he'd chosen principle over pragmatism. At least he'd refused to become what Valentine wanted. A gunshot echoed through the warehouse. Marcus waited for darkness. It didn't come. He opened his eyes. Emily stood frozen, a red stain spreading across her chest. She looked down at it, confused, then collapsed to the floor. Behind her, still bound to the chair but with the gag hanging loose, sat Captain Chen. And clutched in her teeth was a small pistol, the backup piece she always kept strapped to her ankle. Marcus stared. How did you... Chen spit out the gun. Dislocated my thumb. Slipped one hand free while you kept her distracted. Took me 15 minutes to reach the ankle holster with my mouth. She grinned. Sorry I couldn't warn you. Didn't want to tip her off. Marcus laughed, then winced as pain shot through his shoulder. He crawled to Emily's body, checking for a pulse. Gone. He untied Chen while she radioed for backup, ambulance, the whole cavalry. The timer? Marcus asked. Chen looked at the device strapped to her chest. It's a prop. Kitchen timer from Walmart with some wires taped on. Emily was right about one thing. It was all theater. They sat together in the moonlight, bleeding and exhausted but alive. Emily Foster's body lay still between them. In the distance, sirens wailed, growing closer. Valentine's going to be disappointed, Chen said. His finale didn't go as planned. No, Marcus agreed. It didn't. But as he waited for the ambulance, staring at Emily's empty eyes, Marcus couldn't shake one thought. Valentine had been partially right. Marcus had been willing to kill. Had been seconds away from making that choice. The fact that Chen had solved the problem first didn't erase the truth. When pushed far enough, when the stakes were high enough, even good people discovered their capacity for darkness. Maybe that made him human. Maybe it made him dangerous. Maybe it made him both. At the precinct, hours later, Marcus stood outside Valentine's cell. The psychopath sat on his bunk reading a book as if multiple murders were just a minor inconvenience. "Emily's dead," Marcus said through the bars. Valentine looked up, his expression unreadable. "I know, they told me. Pity, she was brilliant." "Your finale failed, did it? You're standing there with a bullet wound and blood on your conscience. Captain Chen will never feel safe again. Emily's death will haunt you both, and me? I'm exactly where I wanted to be, a legend. The man who outsmarted everyone. Who turned a city into his stage." Valentine smiled. "I'd call that a successful finale." Marcus turned to leave. "Marcus," Valentine called. "One last thing. You passed the test. You chose morality over pragmatism. That's admirable. Stupid, but admirable. But remember, the test isn't really over. Every day for the rest of your life, you'll wonder if you made the right choice. If Chen had died because you refused to kill Emily, could you have lived with that? The question will eat at you. And that's my real masterpiece. Not the bodies, not the fear, the doubt, the uncertainty. Welcome to my world, detective. It's lonely here, isn't it?" Marcus walked away without answering. Because Valentine was right about one thing, the doubt would stay. The question would linger. What would he have done if Chen hadn't freed herself? Would he have crossed that line? He'd never know for certain, and maybe that was the real horror. Not the monsters you face, but the monster you might become when tested. The darkness inside that you can never fully measure until the moment demands it. Marcus stepped out into the night, shoulder throbbing, mind exhausted. The city stretched before him, full of lights and shadows, good people and bad, choices that would define him every single day. Tomorrow, there would be paperwork, investigations, media, healing. But tonight, he just drove home, carrying the weight of what had happened and what hadn't, of lives saved and lives lost, of the thin line between justice and vengeance that he walked every day. The game was over. Valentine had lost. But somehow, Marcus didn't feel like he'd won.